Thanks so much. I was just telling my mom, man, this is such a wonderful occasion, and Granddad, he would have a great 91st birthday today if he were here. As you all know, tonight would have been his 91st birthday, and as a family, we were so fortunate to have him for 90 years, and to be with him last year to celebrate such a milestone with him. Wherever my grandfather went, and whatever he did, he was always the gentleman from Ohio. He always exuded grace and humility. This past summer, I ran into Dr. Art Hicks, who told me then his vision for this wonderful celebration tonight. Fortunately, I was able to let my grandfather know this day would come to pass. So I do believe in some form he's here with us tonight. I know how proud my granddad was of Dr. Art Hicks and everyone who worked so hard to put together this symposium. I know were he here today, he would be so proud of the family members in attendance. Today, I'm joined by my mother, Shelley Stokes Hammond, who's the eldest daughter of Lewis. I'm joined by my cousin, Alex Thompson, who's the daughter of Lori Stokes, who is Lewis's youngest daughter. And I'm also joined by Lewis's cousin, Alberta Johnson, who is his cousin. And she's gonna get mad at me for saying this, but she's also the sister of Rick James. So, folks, I know how honored he also would have been by the presence of his friend, Congresswoman Bernice Johnson. Congresswoman Johnson was my former boss, and really with the work I do here at the National Science Foundation, I know that she still is my boss. So I know personally just how committed she is and how hard she works on these issues. Ever since I can remember, Granddad always valued education as an essential tool for progress for individuals, our nation, and our world. He would tell me how his mother, a domestic worker, would tell him to get an education and to put something in your head so you wouldn't have to use your hands like me. Acquiring a college education seemed impossible for him, given his family's economic situation. After serving in a segregated army and suffering great indignities, he was able to use the GI Bill to afford a college education, which then enabled him to go to law school. This is the kind of opportunity he sought to give others through funding programs like the Alliances for Minority Participation in STEM. He once said, which was said in the video, "I was honored and I was humbled to have my name associated with this great program," when his name was added to the program. He also explained, "I was the first Black member of the Appropriations Committee in the history of the House, so I felt a special obligation to utilize these programs to help minorities able to achieve parity in our society." Around this time last year, my phone rang at about 5:30 a.m. The only reason I picked up the call was because I saw that it was Granddad calling. I picked up the call. "Eric, did I wake you?" Granddad said. I acknowledged that he did, and he gave me one of his trademarked hearty laughs. He then told me that he was in his hotel room preparing to give remarks to speak at the Ohio State LSAMP program. He then asked me to provide him some statistics on the exact number of graduates from LSAMP. I got up, went to my computer, read him the stats. Among those numbers, I remember telling him that LSAMP at that time had graduated over 400,000 students. He replied, "Wow, isn't that something?" And after that stat, I read a bunch of other ones, and every single time just said, "Wow, isn't that amazing?" And keep in mind, it was 6 in the morning, and this went on for about 30 minutes. Granddad told me stories about how, as a lawyer, he would ask tough questions, serving as the only Black member of Congress on the Appropriations Committee in the 1970s and 80s, and how he would hear other members of Congress sigh when he did and say, "There he goes again." And he told me that fighting for equity isn't easy, but in the end, they respected him for asking those tough questions that needed to be asked. One of the goals of the LSAMP programs is to encourage students to aim high. I know my family here with us tonight would agree that was one of my grandfather's trademark statements when speaking to youth, but also speaking to his 4 children and his 7 grandchildren when growing up. My grandfather grew up poor in the 1930s in public housing projects. His father died when he was 3 years old. His mother was a domestic worker, Yet somehow he ended up being the first African-American congressman elected from the state of Ohio. And his brother Carl ended up being the first African-American mayor of a major American city. None of this would have been possible without education and support to obtain one along the way. My grandfather always said, "I just wanted to serve." And an old proverb says, "It takes a village to raise a child." The LSAMP model achieves this goal. Thank you.
I just want to join the rest of our family in saying thank you for this beautiful tribute to our father on the anniversary of his first birthday since his passing. And I also just wanted to say that, unfortunately, our mother could not be here, Jay Stokes, but she was aware of this program and very excited. In fact, she just received within the last 2 weeks a beautiful book from the New Mexico LSAMP program. If there's anybody here who's aware of it, but they had had some difficulty in getting this beautiful photo album with inscriptions from a lot of the students written in there. So this was just an opportunity. She just, on our way here, she wanted to make sure people knew how grateful she was. And I'm just one of 4 of his children. Also not with us today are my sister Angie and my sister Lori, who is Alex's mom, and our brother Chuck, and he has 7 grandchildren. And I only mention that because Dad was as passionate about family as he was about serving others in the community. And if he were here today, well, you've shown well how much you know him, how well you know him, about the beautiful way you've set this whole thing up. But you would know he was happy, and he'd want you to know how much he loves you. Thank you.